Oh, let me tell you something. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate the movies. I am your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, John Michael Bond.
Hey, Jay. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm very happy to have you. You've been on my list for a while. I know you got some fun taste in movies. And I'm especially, it felt never more appropriate to have you now because you just had a new album come out and people should listen to it. Everything is fine.
I decided that I didn't get to record the album I wanted before the world set fire, and then I wrote a shitload of jokes over quarantine. It was like, I don't want to do any of these old jokes anymore. So I spent 12 hours going through every old set that I had recorded and found the good shows outside of the 400 billion tiny dive bars where people are shouting, I hope you die. And I put together a really nice, strong, like 55 minutes of jokes that are in no way designed to be listened to in that order. And I'm proud of it. I'm really proud of how it came out.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that I had my album come out during all this too, because now there's really no excuse for me to ever do any of those jokes ever again.
Yeah.
It's just so weird to have jokes that I think about, like even stuff that I was doing right before COVID hit, and I was just like, oh, this has no bearing on my life anymore. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't think anyone needs to hear me talk about this. But I just have a special place in my heart for it.
Every time I was doing a Zoom show or something during COVID, I would just be like, hi, here's a bunch of jokes that feel trivial now.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to cobble it together. I know that the best place for people to get it is Bandcamp.
I'm gonna throw it on Twitter or on Spotify and iTunes probably this week. But Bandcamp makes the most money, so it's more important for me to make money than it is for me to make it easy for anyone to find me.
I get that. Fuck that Sound Exchange streaming money. Go buy John Michael's album on Bandcamp. Everything is fine. John Michael is super funny, and you do yourself the service of listening to his album and purchasing his album.
It's also pay what you want. So if you're poor, you can just give me $1 and that'll be fine.
Great. There you go. Even better.
Yeah, I'm a socialist. Just put the money back in circulation to me, you know?
Exactly. Give John Michael the means of production of another album. Or something like that. I need to read more theory, is all that means. I'm super pumped to have you on because of the movie you picked, which shockingly has not been picked until now. Is a total piece of garbage from 2017 called Bright, American urban fantasy action film, directed by David Ayer, written by Max Landis. Starring Will Smith, right at the height of his beginning to get into social media fame. Mm-hmm. It's got Joel Edgerton. It's got Ike Barinholtz playing a piece of shit as he was doing a lot of around this time. And why this movie? Why Bright?
So I'm kind of twofold. One, I was a huge fantasy nerd growing up. Dungeons and Dragons. I played Shadowrun, which is like Dungeons and Dragons with extra virginity added to it. It's a cyberpunk futuristic version of Dungeons and Dragons where like there are orcs and people, but there are also like cyber samurai, and like you can play a hacker who hacks brains. So like I've always been into fantasy shit. I also like futuristic fantasy shit. I love the idea of a world where like wizards and guns exist. So this movie should be like I am the target demographic for Bright. I am an apologist for this stuff. So for me to think it's a bag of steaming shit means that it is a fucking nightmare of a film.
It is. Oh my God. It is so hard to watch.
Oh, and the second reason is I've seen it like 10 times. I hate watch this obsessively because it could be good. It's so with subtle changes, it could have been a decent film. And it's like a fight you pick with your girlfriend or your wife that you know you're never going to win, but you still do every 6 weeks.
Right.
Where I'm just like, yeah, but if you just did this differently, things would be beautiful. That's my relationship.
Have the hope.
That's my relationship with Bright.
Yeah, for those of you who have not seen Bright, good for you, first of all. Congratulations. It is a movie that basically... So David Ayer has made his bones directing cop dramas, and cop dramas set in L.A. specifically. And what this is a cop drama, but instead of there being like black people and Mexican people and Asians and whatever, it's all like orcs and elves and human beings. And
so, a fucking dragon?
Yeah, there's a dragon. There's fairies that...
For 1 second, there's a dragon just in the background.
Yeah, same. There's like centaurs for a second. There's dwarves for a second.
They constantly want to tell you how interesting the movie could have been.
It's such a shit because
they're literally threatening you with a good time.
And the premise of the movie is that Will Smith is working with the first orc police officer. And they get caught up in basically a magic user scheme where somebody's using a magic wand. Magic is like federally regulated.
Yeah, wands are like weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, wands are like making people blow up as soon as they grab them, but everybody wants to. It's just, there's so much batshit insane like plot in this movie that they sort of dip into for a second and then they just completely ignore.
Oh, this is one of those movies where like you watch it and you can tell there was clearly like a 400-page shooting script, and they couldn't tell which one of their favorite parts to like keep in the movie. So they're just constantly raising more interesting plots that are never brought up. Like at one point, they make a big point. There's like segregation. There's an elf district, which is just like Beverly Hills, but with military guards at the entrance to it. And they're like, oh, clearly something's going to happen in the elf district. And then they spend the rest of the time in the most racist rendition of the barrio you could possibly find.
Yes. But hey, at least they gave the gang leader, he was in a wheelchair. So,
his name's
representation. Yeah, most of the movie takes place in like a weird underpass safe house.
Yeah.
Which is super, it's just like, there's so much in this movie that doesn't make sense. I want to know, I mean, you've seen this 10 times, which is more than anyone should ever see this movie.
Yeah.
And I want to know, what was it like the first time you watched this movie? Because it's got, I mean, you're not alone. It's one of the most streamed movies on Netflix. So there are people out there who watch this over and over again.
I think it's important to say first that my parents are very supportive of my comedy. So they've seen me do comedy a lot, which is rare. The first time I watched Bright was on Christmas Eve with my dad. It like launched on Christmas. It was their big like, hey, it's our first big serious Netflix movie. And my dad also loves shitty movies. We watch Time Cop every Christmas as like a family tradition. And I watched Bright, inflicted it upon my dad, and he spent the entire movie roasting me. This is a man who owns Time Cop on Blu-ray because we watch it as a family. And he was just like, are you making me sit through this piece of shit? Are you done yet? Are you ready? So that's my first memory of Bright, was ruining my relationship with my dad. Which is fitting, because that's why Max Landis turned out the way he did. So
yeah.
Yeah, man, it is I think the thing that really like struck me the first time I watched it is how it doesn't know what it wants to be. It doesn't know who any of its characters are. And then it constantly tries to like inject elements of our world into this like fantasy world, but by having a black guy do it, which is like having a black cop say fairy lives don't matter today, which happens in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Right. Just knocking it out.
And it's after like this extended credit sequence of like really intense LA gang graffiti repurposed as like orc verse cop graffiti. And like there's like there's a painting of like a cop of an orc making gun fingers shooting magic at a cop, and it says curse the police and shit. Like it is top to bottom full of like the imagery that a millionaire white person thinks is poignant about race.
Right. This is what happens when your dad is too caught up in dealing with a lawsuit about killing people with a helicopter to teach you about how people actually like interact with each other and what constitutes good satire or like a good social commentary versus just like, all right, we're just going to map this over on top of it being an orc instead of a black guy.
Yeah, and it's and like there's not even like a moment of like subtlety. There's only two kinds of orcs. They're orcs who are shuck and jive caricatures of black people,
right.
And then there's the good orc who's turned his back on orc society and just wants to be a cop. Mm-hmm. You know, the two flavors. And it's top to bottom. It's more interested in setting up a different movie. Like it sets up like 4 sequels. They're constantly like, oh, there's the Dark Lord. Here's the Shield of Light and all these like secret societies and stuff. It's a bad sign when the script doesn't even want to be in the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, I wish I was watching something else too.
It's so, and the script, the actual like the dialogue is so bad. It's so hacky. It's so low hanging fruit. And it manages to do something that's so hard to do, which is make Will Smith unlikable.
Oh, he's the worst.
He's so bad. I can see why he started to get like putting all of his energy into TikTok and YouTube after this.
And fucking the worst thing, like the thing that sucks about it, I think, like the is kind of unforgivable is his character is dog shit unlikable, but the chemistry between Will Smith and Joel Edgerton, who plays like his orc cop partner, is fantastic. Mm-hmm. Like I think that's why I keep going back and rewatching it. I'm like, maybe there's a good movie if I try hard enough. There's like a film here. Is like they have such good chemistry. They're genuinely funny, even when the dialogue is dog shit. Mm-hmm. Like he has like an ability, like Joel Edgerton acts through the makeup. He does a
great job compared. Yeah. Like he's putting on a show. He's putting on the performance of a lifetime here. He's talking about, it's just like he's really, because you can tell he's really trying to be the guy who you want to like. Like he wants to be the reason that people latch on to this movie is like, I'm going to play this cool character. This is his shot, he thinks. I think
it's the problem is the movie thinks that it's being RoboCop. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen RoboCop?
I have still not seen RoboCop.
Okay. First off, RoboCop, for the listeners who haven't seen RoboCop, see RoboCop. It is the single greatest piece of action movie satire like ever made. If you've ever wanted to know how to like make a story about cops be both poignant, funny, and thrilling, watch RoboCop. It is a brilliant film. And this movie is so fucking positive it's RoboCop. And it's cocky about it. Like it always throws in like really out of place like humor or like one-liners right after like Will Smith wholesale murders a bunch of cops because they might be like about to betray him, and then he's like one-liner, and then it like immediately tries to be poignant again.
Yeah,
fucking
like
crap.
The sequence in the strip club where the Poison's whole gang, yeah, they roll up on him like in half literally, half figuratively, and they. And Will Smith is basically just like egging them on because he's ready to die. So he's throwing in all these just quips, but it just doesn't like it. None of it. The tone is so mismatched.
This is a movie where we believe that there's been a war between elves, orcs, and humans for 2,000 years, but Shrek exists. Like at one point, they're like stopped by orc gang members, and he's like, "Back the fuck up, Shrek!" And it's like, "Wait, I want to know that. That's the movie I'm more interested in. How did a world where like millions of humans were murdered by the Dark Lord end up greenlighting Shrek and getting it made?"
I mean, at that, if we're bringing on Shrek was probably a show that was come out of the Chitlin circuit at that point, and just.
Just pig face. It was real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just people doing the orc face. It's.
Oh man, there's so many. I imagine there's definitely a comedian in the world of Bright who's been canceled for doing orc face.
Oh, there has to be. I mean, we know that there's real comedians. Joe Rogan's in here. Joe Rogan makes a cameo appearance doing his podcast.
The Joe Rogan Experience. The only thing that they really fucked up is they show Joe Rogan and like talking about orc rights, and then they don't cut to him talking about orc supplements. Mm-hmm. And again, just you're leaving money on the table. What are we doing there? Tell me about it. Tell me about the world. You know?
Yeah, we got to know about whatever the Alpha Brain version for elves is, right? We got to know what if they're selling on it with kettlebells that are shaped like orc heads.
Find your inner dark lord with. Christ. I also just like it can't figure out if it wants to be poignant or if it wants to be funny. So like after having all of these like ham-fisted metaphors for racism like thrown in the whole movie, they get kidnapped by a orc gang leader who then goes on a like 5-minute speech about racism while holding guns to their head about how it's like, you know, like we don't want to be in a gang. We don't want to have violence. I throw parties for everybody, and the humans and the elves and the orcs come and we all dance and party. And then the cops come and shoot up everything. And you're like, oh, this is supposed to be poignant. And then he's like, pull the tarp off the death pit where we throw the people that we execute. And then he pulls the tarp off a death pit. There's like a 400-foot spike-filled pit.
And then
like, we're not killers, but we do have a death pit.
But don't forget, then we got to throw the other poignant moment in where it turns out the orc that Joel Edgerton saved is the son of the gang leader.
God. Yeah, the whole film is this plot about how like Will Smith doesn't trust his partner because he got shot while the guy was buying him a burrito 30 feet away from where the shooting happened. Mm-hmm. Which is like there's no reason to be mad at him. It's just shit happens and you're a cop. Of course people want to shoot you. And then like the orc partner let an orc get away, and then you find out later it's because like he got the wrong orc, and he's like, I can smell him. And then he spends 20 minutes with a gun to his head in the same room as the orc that he could smell, and he's never like, hey, is that Bobby? Is that Bobby, the young street artist who I saved?
I mean, there's a lot of smells going on in that room. Who knows?
That's fair. I imagine orc flatulence is constant. And then
the smell of that death pit too probably was not great.
It's gruesome. And then the dad's like, oh, you saved my boy. Well, I'll be the one to shoot you in the back.
Yeah. All that means is that my son's not going to do it.
Yeah. They're like, I'll spare your life for 5 seconds. Boom. It's constantly setting up more interesting ideas. Mm-hmm. But they were like, no, we need to have this girl reveal that she can like bring people back to life with the wand, which we then never fully explain. There's a big magic fight at the end that there's 2 bolts of magic shot in an 8-minute fight. Most of it's just people pointing at each other poignantly. Then they win the fight, drop the wand, and run out of a burning building. And then at some point, Will Smith falls down, like in the burning building. They never show shit happen.
Right. He's keeping up with his partner as they're leaving the burning building for the entire sequence, and then all of a sudden he's just on the ground, got caught under a chain link fence or some stupid bullshit. You have
to remember, they wrote 400 pages of script, but forgot to write an ending. So while they were filming, they were like, I don't know, maybe he's bad at walking now.
This was right around. So I watched this movie a couple nights ago, and this part was right around the part where I did fall asleep during this movie.
You missed the best part.
No. I nodded off. I saw Jacoby get brought back to life.
Okay.
And then the orcs all freaked out because there was a shaman there who's like, this is the prophecy, which is another great, interesting idea that we don't know anything about. And so then I missed the part where I guess they explain she starts speaking English, and then they explain you have to get the wands together to resurrect the Dark Lord.
Yeah.
But then I woke back up when they were at the pool, and I was like, did I miss something? And I didn't really miss anything. They just didn't explain a whole lot after that about what any of that was supposed to mean.
Yeah.
And I got, I woke up right in time to watch the gigantic nothing fight between Layla and Will Smith.
Oh God. Just a film with no stakes or pacing or action. Like, someone gets shot and then looks at their hand for like 30 seconds. Their hand gets blown off and they're like, oh, what a stump I have there. Not, I should probably try to pick the wand up again or use my magic again. Just, oh, fuck. There's the orc cop blows an evil wizard's hand off or some shit, and then he's like, shoot her in the face, and he's like thinks about it, and then he fires the gun and it clicks, and then there's like an audible, like you could feel 5 seconds, and then he goes, I guess I'm out.
Yeah.
There's no urgency. They're holding a nuclear weapon, like the equivalent of a nuclear weapon in their hand. And it's just like, I could kill her, but unfortunately, I ran out of bullets. We're going to have this conversation in this pace and this voice and this tone.
How are they, by the way, for all of the magic users in this movie, even the part where they could most consequentially use magic to their advantage, which is at the gas station fight scene.
Oh, yeah.
They don't. They use a car to kill everybody pretty much. That's it.
I think it and again, all they have to do is throw in a line of dialogue of being like, yeah, it would blow up the gas station. You're like, all right, cool. But they never even really explain what the wand can do. The first 3 things you see the wand do are you see 2 guys who are glowing corpses that are like embers. And you're like, oh, cool, very powerful. And then you see this bitch who's been like blasted against a wall to the point where I guess she becomes an angel.
Yeah, it looked like she'd fused with the wall or something, but she was still alive.
Yeah, it looks like if a wand made bad Dr. Brainwash art. Like it is. If there was a Banksy wand, it would just blow this bitch into the wall and turn her into like a sad goth.
I guess.
If Banksy bled AFI fans into inanimate objects, it would be one of the powers of this wand.
Yeah, if Banksy designed the logo for a series of American Horror Story, that would be what it looked like.
I will say that the ending, my favorite element of it is just they finally come out of this burning building having left the weapon that they spent all day dying over, the thing that would clear their name. They're like, we're going to leave it in there to die. And then they get brought out, and there's some cops, and the cops have been trying to kill them all day, but the cops have apparently decided not to try to kill them anymore. And there's some EMTs, and they're just kind of like laying there shooting one-liners at each other. And then all of a sudden, Egerton, the orc, just looks up, and the orcs that tried to murder him earlier in the film are just standing on the periphery of the cops. Right. And they're like, they cut his hand, and he's like, ugh! And they're like, he's like, oh, cool, I'm blood bonded now. And they're just like, did you stalk him for the magical gunfight so you could show up and be like, my bad?
Well, they could smell him. They had a good sense of smell. They tracked him by